Hey everyone, we are back here on GameSpot's E3 stage. I'm your host Mike Mahardy here with Justin Haywald.
How's it going?
And we've got a couple members of Naughty Dog here to talk about Uncharted
Lost Legacy.
Lost Legacy. Shauna Skye, creative director, and Kurt Marganow, the game director. Thanks so much for coming on the show today, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So, big deal, Sony at the press conference opened up with Lost Legacy. And of course we know the game is coming out soon. But, you know, the standalone title with Chloe Frazer and Nadine Ross. What is it like to be kind of back in the Uncharted series after 4 closed out Nathan Drake's story?
Well, when we did wrap Uncharted 4, we felt like we closed that chapter. And we were exploring different storylines in that world. We went through quite a bit, pretty in-depth explorations on it. And the Chloe Frazer, Nadine Ross story just kept popping back out, just kept grabbing our attention. So we're pretty excited to engage and get into the story.
Yeah, Chloe was always a character that we loved, and we kept coming back. We, explored Sam and Sully and all these like side characters, and Chloe was the one that we always put a smile on her face to think about her having her own game, and then the foil to her, personality of Nadine, who is this militaristic, she's a logical person, and Chloe is this kind of more improvisational, and the way that they see things, putting them together got us excited for what conflicts and how they can handle situations.
Yeah, it was interesting to see during the reveal last year, Chloe is kind of like the classic Uncharted 2, that part of the era. And then Nadine was introduced in Among Thieves and everything. And, a Thief's End, my mistake. And, it's kind of cool. Do you see it as kind of marrying the past and more recent past of Uncharted?
Yeah, it's a bit of that. It's also the perfect brew for conflict.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, like Kurt was saying, we have the enigmatic, thieving hustler, Chloe Frazer, and paired her up with the pragmatic, militant ex-shoreline leader, Nadine Ross. So yeah, it's a bit of exploring that turmoil.
Yeah, it's combining old and new, and also Nadine, who was a bad guy in the last game,
Sure.
and now she's on our side, so it's exciting.
Yeah, that goes. Yeah.
Exciting.
In some ways, it's also kind of breaking down that gender barrier, that this is definitely a type of game. Uncharted has always had that great Nathan Drake male lead. In this, you're not only taking one female lead, you have 2 female leads. What was the thinking behind that?
I mean, we approach it as everything we do at Naughty Dog by what are the characters, what are they like, how are these relationships going to grow and evolve, and how will these characters play off each other?
Yes.
So we had these 2 great characters, and they happen to be female, and there's no barriers for us like saying yes or no, we're going to choose them one way or the other. It's just these are the 2 best characters that we thought would fit into a story together.
Yeah. I couldn't say it better.
How did the idea for this kind of standalone story with these 2 characters come about in its inception, right? Like, at what point in the original Uncharted, the 4 games, did someone say, maybe we could do this to explore Chloe further, or maybe, like, Nadine's time to Thief's End wasn't enough to really flesh this out? Did, like, someone come down and say, we need to do this because this would be an awesome side chapter that we could release?
No, the process happened pretty organically. We, like we said, explored a bunch of different storylines.
Yeah, after Uncharted 4.
Yeah.
So it was
cool.
We were done with Uncharted 4, and we sat down to think about what else could we do, and
yeah, and we started exploring, like, because this is a thieving world. It's got a great cast of characters to pull from. Chloe Frazer was a fan favorite, and then Nadine was paired because she would create the most conflict.
Yeah.
And it's kind of the theme of this game is that progress comes through conflict. So it's what we were aiming for.
Yeah, it was interesting playing Uncharted 4 because, her Nadine's allegiances are kind of in question throughout the game, and then I'm not going to spoil anything, but, you get to the end, and I did find myself wanting to know more about where she came from because of where she ended up at the end of A Thief's End. Yeah. And, her motivations the whole time are kind of in question. They seem clear-cut at first, and, she's this really badass character, but then by the end, it's very much, I'm not sure I saw everything going on. Is there an effort to kind of, like, flesh things out and maybe lead that up to maybe, like, more answers, or just more, like, exploring these characters?
Yeah, I think it's a general exploration of these characters, right? They're set out after the Tusk of Ganesh, as you know, if you saw the trailer. They have to navigate the wild Western Ghats with these like monumental sized archaeological ruins, but and with this really formidable villain after them, right? But most importantly, they have to navigate each other and survive each other if they're supposed to get this treasure.
And it's funny you mentioned, Nadine at the end of Uncharted 4, or she's the self-preservationist instinct is something that they share. So obviously there's conflict, but there's also commonalities between them, and another reason for them to team up.
Yeah.
Oh, and thinking about this from a developmental standpoint, it seems like an interesting choice that you said you started on this well after you'd finished Uncharted 4, but this is also a standalone thing. So I guess from a developmental standpoint, did you guys ever think about making this like its own standalone, completely different game? Why is this DLC, but that's also kind of separate, like Left Behind for The Last of Us?
So it is its own game. It grew. In true Naughty Dog fashion, we just do like the biggest version of everything we can possibly imagine. But we learned that to have these characters have the arcs that they want to have, and for the relationships to grow and change, we really needed the space to build that out. So it became a full game.
Yeah, I mean, at Naughty Dog, we kind of pride ourselves, telling stories about the human condition, and deep story arcs and character arcs. So just by the nature of that, what started as a smaller project just expanded into this full game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when you're looking at Naughty Dog's games, you see, obviously you start off with, like going way back, you start off with Crash, and then you come to like Jak and Daxter, and then you come to Uncharted, and then The Last of Us. It looks like it gets progressively more mature and more serious, or more maybe a little more melancholic or just dark in general. And then you see The Lost Legacy, the reveal, and then you see it this year, and it looks like it's even like darker than A Thief's End, which I think was one of the more mature Uncharted games. Is there an effort to make this game maybe a little bit more ominous in tone?
I think by the nature of the character herself, or the character themselves, so Chloe and Nadine, the tone has shifted. I don't think there was intent to make it more, dark or anything. It's still the action-packed adventure. In fact, there's a lot of the Uncharted world that we kind of harnessed or brought back, almost like a sum of the Uncharted worlds.
Okay.
So big adventure, high combat or intense combat.
And Chloe's
exploration.
Chloe's a fun character.
For sure, yeah.
And she's definitely fun in this game.
Yeah, she led to a lot of comic relief with her and her relationship with Drake, and even Elena in Uncharted 2.
Yeah, there's definitely some callbacks to previous games that people will enjoy.
Is this primarily built on the previous game and just kind of an addition of story, or are you changing any of the mechanics, or is there any additions like that?
When we thought about this game and who Chloe is and as a character, and then mechanically how we wanted to expand Uncharted, we went to Chloe's the kind of she's the schemer, as the line in the trailer says. So we have the lockpicking mechanic of we showed at PSX, which is a game-wide thing. We can use it to unlock things. We have other weapons and things you can find and treasures. There's also just a push for more player choice in general. We're doing bigger spaces and more exploration, and there's stealth options we can have, silenced weapons and things. So there's a lot more of just player choice in general.
Also, we've kind of spilled narrative into gameplay a little more. If the characters' arcs are in a certain space, then their relationship as you play with them is also changed or affected by that character arc.
And thinking about those experiments that you get to make, especially with a company as technological as Sony behind you guys, did you think about doing anything with PlayStation VR? We've seen a lot of companies not use that to make full games, but to add on experiences like that. Is that something you toyed around with or thought about for this?
I mean, we love the PSVR. The PSVR is super awesome. I have one at home. There's some great games on there. I mean, for us, in the kind of story we want to tell, the platform, we're just we're focused on what we do well, the console game. VR is exciting for us to play, but maybe in the future.
Doesn't mean we won't explore it in the future.
Yeah, it's interesting. I imagine it must have been kind of thrilling but nerve-wracking to like have this this beloved franchise, one of like the most beloved in video games, and then say we're going to tell another story outside of the traditional arc of Nathan Drake. Can you talk about like what was going through your head when you first sat down to get to work on this project?
I think the team really embraced this project from the get-go. When we started, once we locked on the actual story, everyone was excited about Chloe and what Chloe would do in such situations, like how would, this thieving, hustler, double-dealing character, pair up with, the pragmatic Nadine as they search for this tusk, this fabled treasure from the Hosala people. And then having a very formidable, very intelligent and low-key character or villain character be after them, someone who's, got ties or thinks he's got ties to this land. So, the whole premise of the story was pretty exciting. So I don't think we approached it as nerve-wracking. We were just so pumped. We just kind of jumped in, head in.
It was kind of a relief in a way that Uncharted was over. Because we knew, okay, those characters are off limits. We want that ending to be meaningful. So completely off limits was Nathan Drake and those characters, and it's kind of a blank slate in some ways where we can take these characters that are lesser known and build our own arcs and our own backstories and things. So it's been exciting in that way for sure.
Did it feel limiting at all, thinking about coming at this from a digital perspective, that this isn't a full retail game, so you can't just go crazy and make this 60 hours long? You do have some limits, right?
I don't know. We seem to... I guess there's a limit somewhere, but I mean, we built this story and we tried to, we're just trying to tell the story, and the game turned out being a lot bigger than we had initially thought, and it turned into a full game. So if there's limits, I guess we haven't really seen them yet.
Mm-hmm. We're always pushing our limits. That's for sure. That's the one thing we do well.
Cool. Just one last question, I guess. When can we play this? Soon, right?
Yeah, August 22nd.
22nd.
Cool.
August 22nd.
All right, Sean and Kurt, thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, guys.
If you're watching this from home, we will be having more game demos, more developer interviews here from our E3 stage throughout the week, so stay tuned to GameSpot. We'll see you around.